to me because I've known this gentleman for 30 years of my career. I met him in the early stages when I was at RCA Records. Mark Pitts had just become the manager of who I say is the greatest ever, but arguably the greatest ever by a lot of people, Notorious B.I.G. And you know, Mark, I know you don't do these. I know you for a long time. You don't do panels. You don't do speeches, and for that reason, I truly appreciate you saying yes to this. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'm telling you, though, this is the first time in my entire career that I gave you a fast yes. I'll be finding a way to always bob and weave, dodge it, something, you know, absolutely. But it's, you know, it's you.
Well, it's for a great cause too. It really is. We're really working with Pepsi. Pepsi loves the individual spirit of artists and is really working hard to help artists truly understand how to get their careers going. And obviously you're great for that. But I mean, just so everyone knows, for everyone's edification, Mark is now president of RCA Records for the past 13 months. Before that, he was president of urban music at RCA Records. Before that, like I said, he was Notorious B.I.G.'s manager, but he had also founded a company called By Storm Entertainment, which is a fascinating company and has had so much impact on today's culture with artists. And we'll talk about that. And we'll obviously talk about, you know, Biggie and those days. But I find it so intriguing how successful you've been. And then the fact that I know you from day one and I see the kind of person you are, I think you defy a lot of the myths of what the music business seems to be, where you have to be a tyrant, or you have to be vicious, or you have to be, you know, this ruthless leader to be successful. And I think, to me, it's really about your mindset and your approach, Mark, to how you've navigated an incredible 30-year career. And I'd love if you would just talk a little bit. I know that's a very general question, but what is your philosophy of everyday kind of how you approach your job and work?
I think about the fact that a lot of things could have gone another way. You know, in my life, you know, where you come from, and I had so many different moments in life that I knew I was meant to be here. You know, from the Biggie situation when he, you know, when he passed. I mean, I have countless stories that I just missed it, right? And I always think about things like that because, and then, you know, it could have gone another way, and you know, and so it reminds you of the blessings that you have, and I live by it, you know, because at the end of the day, and I'm also clear, so no matter what happens, you know, I always say I can have a good day, and I'm still gonna have a great week because I just have clarity, and I feel like that's just my foundation of life, and I put it into my everyday, and I wake up like that.
And it's true, because there are people that you get a certain feeling from, and every time if I get a call from you, or if I reach out to you, I leave it on like a noticeable high. My energy, but what you bring out of people, I think, is special. And it's funny because there's a lot of people I speak to, and when I ask you, hey, Mark, how you doing? If we might not have talked for a year or whatever, and you just say, oh, I'm blessed, man, I'm highly favored. I think you said it at the very beginning here. I think a lot of people say those things, but I truly, knowing you, I know you really believe that. And I think the belief in being blessed changes how you approach challenges and negativity. And you know, I'm just curious, like, how did that become part of your ritual or your mantra of who you are? Was it always there? Is that something you had to learn?
You know, I always like to say those are the things I learned at the Sunday table. You know, because it starts at home. You know, and it's the foundation that my mom and dad probably instilled in me. My mom died when I was younger, when I was 15. But my dad was nonstop, and I feel like those tangibles are the things that I learned before, you know, that I learned at an early age. And I feel like those are things you're supposed to, you know, no matter what it is I do. You know, I mean, I can lead a game and sell I don't know, bananas and fruit, whatever. I'm gonna put the same foundation. I'm gonna put the same thing into it because it starts there. It absolutely starts there. And and that's for me. That's my core. That is my core. But that's what it comes from. It starts at home.
It's amazing because you stand out, right? Like there are people that stand out in your life that you meet, and sometimes you recognize it and sometimes you don't. But I always just recognize there's like an aura about the way you carry yourself. And look, I follow you on Instagram, and you're up now when some people in the industry are first going to sleep and you're hitting the weights. And I know it's not just to be healthy physically, but what does that do for you from a clarity standpoint? Because you talk about that a lot. You talk about being clear, and I think clear then leads to confidence and leads to being able to problem solve, which I want to get into specifics, but like you do that for artists.
Right.
So what does waking up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, what does that do for you? And I know if I ever really need to get Gucci, Mark Pitts, that I can call him at 3:30 in the morning.
Absolutely. First of all, I've always been an early person, but that's the time that I had to myself, and that's the time I get to speak to the artists. A lot of times as I'm getting up, they coming down off their thing, and that's how I get my music. That's when I listen to my music, and that's just the time where things are a little quieter, and I get a chance to to do me. You gotta balance your day, and I would also say that it's like your coffee. Like you get pumped up in the morning, and you get that workout in. It's like you just I don't know. It's just a high. And I also say when you start habits like doing things early, by noon you check boxes and you feel like by noon I might have got so much shit done, and you feel like God, that it sets the tone. You get it sets the tone when you start checking your boxes. And I always try to push that on everybody. You don't gotta do 3 in the morning, but I was like when you start early, and you'll be surprised how much you get done by 12, 1 o'clock. You know what I mean? And once you got that, it's almost like once you get that first shot in, then it builds your confidence, and it's gonna be a game. You know what I mean? I'm gonna hit 30 tonight.
Yeah, I think that's what I found amazing about the era we came up in of like the early 90s, which was really the foundation. It was the changing of the guard, right? It went from this underground fad that was probably going to be around for a couple of years, and then it was going to go back to like rock in being the dominant music genre. But it's those foundational times when you're around guys like Puffy and Big. Like Big handled his business. People don't know that. Like I've never seen an artist be able to sit down with a script at a radio station of 30 names and 30 different shows. And I'm sitting here with this DJ on the, Hot 8 at 8, and he never blundered them. He because he was focused. He was clear on what the mission was, and he approached it very seriously. And I know the people around him did. It was a different movement when you were dealing with Puffy in the early days, or as he's known now, Diddy. But and you, please, go, please. What were you gonna say?
One major thing I will never want to forget when you're speaking of Puff is, even though I was always on my, I was always up early, but Puff was the guy that, we lived together for 2 years, right? And when I was his assistant, I was everything. I was the driver, I did it all. Puff never slept, you know what I'm saying? So Puff, he'll go to sleep at 4 o'clock, you know what I mean? So I gotta go to sleep after him. And then he'll get up at 8 o'clock and leave. So I gotta go to sleep after him and wake up before him. So I'm there, and I was trained that way. I was all, even though that, I had that instilled in me, but that was always, and it started off that way as well in the game, working for Puff, because he never slept. He was nonstop. So I appreciated those lessons early on. And then also being a manager, I just always expected everything to go wrong, whether it be a flight, whether it be an interview, everything early. it's always, you get to the airport and you're like, I hope this ticket is right. Or it's always been that. And you gotta get there early because you just have to automatically assume it's gonna be something's wrong. So all of those things, I learned a lot from the wrong thing. I learned, from so many lessons from things that, from all like the moments that annoyed the mess out of you. So yes, I have to give that to Puff too.
Well, and that's amazing to me, because I think, look, social media is a double-edged sword. It could be a very positive opportunity for people to learn about anything they want to learn about, but it kind of focuses on the end result. And like, I remember, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but I'm like, Mark used to drive. Like, I remember you being a driver. And I think I don't want kids today to ever think that something's beneath them. Like, if you want something, and the only way you were able to be a driver was your belief, knowing that you weren't going to always be a driver, right?
Absolutely.
Like, you knew this was just you had to go through whatever. It's like in Shawshank Redemption, when he crawls through 400 yards of sewer to come out clean on the other side. You have to have belief that you're going to get to that other side. Or driving becomes, hey, I'm the driver, as opposed to like, oh no, this is temporary and I'm going to move on from this. But you've done that your whole career. And I think as a manager, you have to do that because, right, like you dealt with problems on the granular level of tickets being wrong.
Absolutely. And I want it in so bad. I just want it in. My thing is, I'm going to get there. I just want it in. And again, you can't, and you're right, you can't, there's nothing, you can't, I mean, I did it all. I can't even, wow. When I talk about all the things I've done, and sometimes Puff would get mad, like, damn, what time you have me? Yes, I did it all. I did whatever I had, I just want, because I want to end. Yeah, absolutely. And what the crazy thing is, I don't take that lightly because I still move like that, even though, I feel like I always felt, general, I still move like a soldier, you know what I mean? Because I want it, every day is, you gotta go after, you gotta keep going after it. Like, it's like the movie 50 First Dates. You gotta make her fall in love with you every day. And that's how the game is. Because you can't master the game. You can't, because the game moves so much. You have to master being ahead.
Yeah. That's amazing to hear you say that. And I want to read something that you recently posted on January 14th. And it was the 1-year anniversary of being named president of RCA. And I'm going to break this down because I think it says a lot about you in 3 sentences. But you wrote, 1 year ago, I was blessed with the opportunity to lead, grow, mentor, and learn. I think learning and being curious, like you said, it's 50 first dates. You have to be excited every morning. But that says so much about you that you weren't like focused. You knew the end results would come if you did these things.
Right. Well, I appreciate that. The first thing I will say is that I always feel like one of my powers is I got a big mirror. I know how I look in it, and you gotta be clear what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. And you have to be mindful of that. And also, these kids, like I said, it's constantly changing. And these kids got more power, but less knowledge in some ways, but they got more power and opportunities. And they, the music they find, they in the places that you ain't gonna be at. And you gotta stay up on top of it. You gotta keep being a constant student. There's no way you can't win like that. That's you're time yourself out. You have to always be a student in this game because it's constantly moving. And so I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate all the knowledge that I get, because I have a lot to give. But it doesn't make, just because I've been in the game longer than you doesn't mean I ain't getting nothing from you.
I just want to finish this quote. You say, with everything going on, which you're referring to the pandemic, we still managed to have a good year, which you could have just put a period there, but you said, and still lots to be done. I think that says a lot about your approach, but what's the lots to be done? Like what's the lots that you have to get done when you have such a banner year as a label?
But you know, it was like I said, it was good. The first year was cute, you know what I mean? But the second year we gotta make it sexy. You know, there's still a lot more a lot more to be done. And the mentoring part of it is very, very important to me because, as I was saying before, these artists and like the young executives, again, they got more power, but they just have less knowledge. And that kind of, especially with the artists, it makes them dangerous. You know what I mean? It makes it dangerous in a way that, because you got the power, but if you don't have the knowledge and how, you know, and how to maneuver in it, you know, it can kind of, whether it can fuck up your opportunities, it can mess up the game, you know, it can affect the game. And the more knowledge they got, the better partners they become. You know, so to me, that's very, 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 very important, you know, for our future, for our next future leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of artists, and obviously you have an incredible RCA roster, but I want to focus a little bit on what you've done with By Storm Entertainment and kind of day one with artists from Notorious B.I.G. to Usher, to J. Cole, to Chris Brown, to Miguel. You know, I just named some artists that are very definitive and very different from each other with the career paths they took. And I find the diversity among those artists like really intriguing, that one of the driving forces behind it is the same person. Like what advice do you give them? Like, give us a real situation, like meeting Miguel. How did that go down? What did you see in him? You know, what made you realize how special this artist could be? Because he hadn't put any music out at that point when you met him.
Right. So it's funny. So with Miguel, his manager at the time sent me Sure Thing for Usher, which was one of, you know, which was one of Miguel's from the first album. And I was like, this record was fire. I sent it to Ush. He took a minute to get to it. You know, sometimes.
How do you know the record's fire when you hear it? I'm just curious.
Because I felt like he was talking, you know what it is? I felt like he was saying something how I would want to say it. If I'm gonna say it to a woman, that's how I would want to say it. Because I'm gonna give you show you the love and not feel whack at the same time. So the way he was saying it, like it was almost like a rapper. And he was saying it in a way that I was like, yo, it was just those words, the way he was breaking it down. And so it started there. And then he sent me Quickie. And I was like, oh my goodness. So I was like, I need to meet him. And And I finally met him, and I tried to sign him on the spot. I didn't let him leave. And, you know, I didn't let him leave, and, you know, we did the deal. And then it took a minute because he was caught up in some business from an old situation he was in. And so it took a minute to come out. But when I fell in love and truly got it, because he always wanted to do so many different things, which I appreciated, but we were trying to lock in on one thing. Every week he was like, he wanted to try this, he wanted to do this, he just wanted to do it all. And I had him meet me one day at the studio because I wanted him to meet Usher. And it was kind of like the first time I was going in the studio with Miguel finally. And I get to the studio, they told me Miguel's there. Miguel's there, he was waiting for me. So I walked into the room, I was excited, and I walked in and he had on like this eyeliner. And he started breaking it down. Like, you know, it was like I'll be on my rock and roll stuff, and he was breaking it down, then he stopped, and then he looked at me and was like, man, I like this. He said it in a way like he said it in a way that made me feel whack for not having it on. Like he was just like, he started explaining this, like, what am I explaining myself for, man? I like this. And he said it so, I don't know, I was like, my God. I was like, I get it. He had me looking in the mirror, like, maybe I need to wear this. Like he said it was so with confidence. And I was like, you know what? I appreciate that. So, because, you know, it's easy to, if I can talk you off a ledge that quick, and, you know, you ain't gonna, or I can back you down, then you don't want it that bad, or you don't want whatever you're trying to sell to me that bad. You know what I mean? You know, I want to see your conviction. And he started and caught himself and like, I don't care who you are. Like, this is the shit. You're whack. That's how I felt. So, and it started then, and that's when we went in and did, we went in with Salam and did All I Want Is You. Cause I was just like, we gotta ease up into it. And I got it. It was so clear to me. And it was that moment, I was like, yo, I rock with this guy.
Wow. No, that's an amazing story. And yeah, I look at like J. Cole, right? Like if I compare it to like, and it seems like, I know you've said things like your history doesn't define you, right? Your past doesn't define you. It's what you're going to do that's going to define you. And you have the ability to change that. It
prepares you.
It prepares you for your future, right? And like with Big's career, there weren't really choices in a sense of how to break an artist, right? Back then, there were a couple of stations playing weekend, you know, a couple hours here or there. Like Hot 97, as Biggie, you know, was coming out and Bad Boy was starting, Hot 97 had just kind of flipped over from being a dance station to a hip hop station. It's not like it was accepted and mainstream like it is today. So the choices weren't there except to really grind it out and do the Big Mac tour and get on the road and go. I mean, we took, you know, I was blessed to be part of that. I took Big on the road and Craig Mack, and we worked, like really, really grinded it out. And then, you know, fast forward to J. Cole's career, and, you know, it was a different time. You can kind of send your music out to everyone and there were outlets to play it. But J. Cole made a decision to do like that $2 tour and go meet every like he just went and kind of went off on his own and did his own thing. Like, how did that come about that you guys did that? Because the payoff came on these albums. Now we're seeing the fan base that he built, and where he's ascended to as an artist. But like, how does that come about with J. Cole? Like, what kind of talks are you and Wayne and Jay having, and, you know, to get him there? Or, and I know, you know, IB and that whole team is so special, but what are those talks like? And what are your talks like with Winner Circle today, which I know you're working on with RCA?
Well, with Cole, I mean, Cole was blessing because Cole was clear on who he was. It was clear. You know, he came in, like he knew who he was. He treated it like he was a college student. He treated it like it was a paper. Like, you know what I'm saying? He was clear on who he was, right? And we just had to shine light on it. You know, like his biggest attribute was him as a person. Like I always say, what makes him special is he wants to be a great man first before being a great artist. You know what I mean? He wants to be a great man, and he just happened to be a dope rapper, and it shines through. And he's just, you know, he's just clear about who he is. And yeah, it came in with the thoughts of what they're trying to make happen. And we just, again, you know, it's almost like you have, you know who you are. You got the mic, speaker. We just have bigger speakers, you know what I mean, to shine more light on it. And that's a rare thing, because a lot of the artists, you know, don't always concede ahead of them like that. You know, like they living in the moment, and that's the moment they in. You know what I mean? Especially now, the rappers' name is a little different. It's like day by day, you know? It's day by day. Like even like Winner Circle, they have the talent and they have the crew. But their process is a little different, because, you know, they come from, you know, the whole Brooklyn drill movement, and they come up, you know, it's a little bit different than Cole and the Dreamville team. But they have an opportunity in Winner Circle to do the same thing, but to do it in a different way, to do it even bigger in a way, because they have a bunch of artists, their whole crew it's like 4 or 5 artists and they have the same mentality. They just say it differently. You know what I mean? Like they all have the same last name. That's the way it feels. You know what I mean? And they just have their way of doing it. And I feel like if it's done right, they you know, they can make it they can change the game. You know what I'm saying? If this is done right. But the process is different because it's a little more of the scrappiness of the thing I come from. And the conversation is a little different when you're dealing with these guys in the streets now. Sometimes you got, you know, you're using those old elements that come out of you, that come up. The conversation is just a little different. But the heart is there and the want and passion is there the same way.
Yeah, that's incredibly insightful. And bringing up, sometimes you have to tap into that past or that history. There's something, I don't know if I may have told you about this. There was a meeting you and I were in together, and it's kind of, I have a lot of references from my dad. My dad was in the warehousing and trucking business in East New York, Brooklyn. And just, you know, a lot like you're saying your father, he bestowed a lot of principles on me and how to deal with people. But I was in a meeting with you early on, and it made me realize how special you were and could be and were going to be. But we were dealing with Hot 97. I was at Arista.
Yeah.
Bad Boy was performing on the Summer Jam for Hot 97. And obviously there's 30, 40 acts. It's 95. This isn't 2020. This is a different time in music. And it was intense. And there were barriers of understanding, and there were young guys coming into the industry that didn't respect the industry, and there were guys that did. But we were in a meeting right before Summer Jam was about to happen, and I brought you in to see the program director, and he kind of started barking on you, which I didn't expect, and saying, you better be on time, and I'm not putting up with this, and I have too many headaches. I'll just pull you off the show. And I was sitting there, and I'm 25 at the time, I think. You were probably 22 or 23. And I'm like, oh, this could get either really ugly or this, like, I had no idea how we were going to move on from how he started the conversation at 10. And you just sat there, you listened to him, and the first thing you said when you let him get it off, and you just kind of looked at him and you said, I don't appreciate how I'm being spoken to. And it kind of, I felt all the intensity leave the room, and the respect of the room shift, of him realizing like what a serious person you were. But like, how does that happen? Or how did you know to do that? I don't know how I would have handled it if I was alone. I might have become very combative. I have no idea, but I think of you in that situation, and obviously you guys did everything you said you were going to do. And Bad Boy was always an incredible partner to Hot 97. I don't think you ever had issues with them after that, but you set the tone. But how did you know to do that? You know, what was in your mind at that time?
You know, it goes back to what you're talking about, the quote, when I say your past doesn't, you know, define you, it prepares you. And you think about things can go change. Your whole life can change in 2 seconds. It happened just that quick. And for one, I'm in this because I want to win. I want this. I want this. And you know, this is, things can change just that quick. And I've seen enough of it at an early age to know. And so that was you know, you think about those things. But also, my dad always said, let them finish, let them talk, because it gives you time to process how you're going to respond. Because he started that way, and I was like, oh, it's going to be one of those. And you sit back, you think about it, and I've seen enough of it being done wrong. I had enough of it early, you know, in my first 2 years of watching. I learned a lot what not to do. And, you know, I got to, you know, compose myself, but I'm not going to let them just get away with just thinking we, you know, putting us in a box, or just thinking we just going, I'm not going to take that, but I am going to think about the best way of handling it, because I'm clear about who that man is too. You know what I mean? I'm in it. I'm not in it for props. I'm in it to make some money and to win. So I'm not gonna let that get messed up either. So at that moment, that's funny you brought that up. At that moment, yeah, that's all I could. Yeah, I can only say that's how I was thinking.
Yeah, and I mean, but it speaks volumes to you, because that could have turned out to be a horrible. It could have been a lose-lose for everyone. And I remember being in awe, and I've carried it with me, obviously, for 30, almost 30 years now, that it is. I think that's a skill that a lot of people need to work on, especially artists. Because if you're an artist, and I'm a businessman, you're a businessman, you hear no a lot more than you hear yes, right? You get, 50. I mean, I think Jeff Bezos said he had 60 no's to 10 yeses for investments, on Amazon. So it's like you get a lot of no's. You're going to get a lot of no's and doors slammed in your face and a lot of setbacks. And you might have to listen to what people say that you don't like, but how you handle it and how you move forward and what you take out of it is really important. So, but I think that's incredible advice to say it gives you time to think. Like there's no win in you cutting him off and raising it to a 10 or 11 on your side when there was no win there. Like, but in the moment, it's very hard to control yourself.
Absolutely.
Especially as a young up and coming, this is hip hop, this is what we do, energy, and you handled it like I thought, like, so well that, yeah, obviously it stayed with me forever. But yeah.
That's funny. You remember that, don't you? Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What's crazy too is I feel like you tend to utilize, like in this era now, it's different. It's different, and you tend to get reminders, and you gotta a lot more. It's that whole feeling of like on so much more, because again, the game was moving fast. There's a lot of a lot of cats in the street in the game. The game is just changing. I mean, it's just a lot more opportunities for you to even, a lot more opportunities for you to lose yourself. You know what I mean? But that's why I said all the things from the past, it just prepares you. Like I will say, there's nothing I've seen it all. I look at, I've seen it all. First of all, I worked for Puff, first and foremost, right? I started with him and it was nonstop. And I feel like after working with him, I can work with anyone, right? That's the first, first and foremost. I think it was so many different. I lost my mom at an early age. At 15, I can get through that. I can get through anything. I think of all the things that happened, and you compare it, and it's like it's not bigger than the shit I have to deal with already.
And I mean, the point I would make to that, and it's amazing to hear, but you could take the side, well, I lost my mom at 15. That's why I can't do this, or I can't get past this, right? Like, because that is a major loss and something, I can't even fathom at that age. My parents are such a part of my life and have been such a part of building me. That those are the choices. Those are the real choices in life that you can, and I think about you. I was in the movement of Big, and I worked at Arista, but obviously I had other things going on with Arista, and I had started my, company while Big was still around. You are 100% in on Big's career. And I know in the documentary, Miss Wallace, which speaks volumes to who you are as a person, she said, I trust my son with Mark. And, you at that time, the loss was so devastating for the hip hop world, but the inner circle. And, I hate to bring it up, but like you could have gone a different path and you could have been out of the industry, you could have this, but, within a year, I believe you started By Storm Entertainment, and you started all over again. And that was the new journey. And I just want to know where that comes from, and that vision, and kind of, obviously you have the Christopher Wallace Foundation you started with Miss Wallace and Wayne Barrow, and that's, important to give back to the community, especially Brooklyn. But like, what motivates you to do that stuff? Because you don't have to do that stuff, but you did it.
Right. I mean, I look at it as my what, because I've been wanting to, I love music. I've been doing it, most of all my life. Music, art. I just, I wanted this badly. I took a pause for a second, but my what ain't changed, just my how changed. And I just, I wasn't gonna let that stop me. Again, you go back to, lost at an early age, and that puts things in perspective. When you're dealing with, just other things that go on in life. But I wasn't gonna let that stop me. I wanted, it slowed me down. It was a pause, and you move through it, and then you gotta keep on going. But the By Storm was even when I was an intern, or assistant or part of Live, I had that on my wall, By Storm. I always knew that's what the name of the company was gonna be. So I had it, that was on my wall. So that was always gonna be my that was my dream. So I wasn't gonna let that stop it. It's just a little slow down for me. It was just a little commercial break.
I do want to ask you, and I studied this guy my whole life, and I'm a huge fan, but Muhammad Ali is one of my favorite people to ever, exist. And I think he did so much for the culture, and he really is credited with being the first rapper, right? Like if you really go back and watch, he was rapping before his fights, and he was, his poems and poetry, and he was just truly amazing. But he has a quote that I think of a lot now because I'm at that age. But he said, "Show me a man who's the same at 50 as he was at 20, and I'll show you a man that wasted 30 years of his life." Which is, to me, it's so true. It's like, if you're still doing the same things, if you haven't evolved and changed, but what would you as Mark Pitts now, with all this experience, 30 years later, have told that, Mark Pitts driving the car, getting, up before Puff, going to sleep after Puff, like the things you had to do to get on, it's obviously that person made you who you are now, but are there things, I know it's a really hard question to answer sometimes, but like, what advice do you give your son and your daughter, and who I know you're very close with, like, now that you have the experience of and knowing, because it's different than when you're 20?
I always tell artists, you can get rich, don't act rich. You know what I mean? And I say that in a way, like, because a lot of times I feel like I still, part of the energy that keeps me going is, first of all, our picture is never done. The picture, your painting is never done, and there's a lot more. There's a lot more to learn and to get out of it. And I always tell them, you can be rich, but don't act it. You know what I mean? Because like, you take your foot off the pedal, you start making that money. And so that's one of the things I always instill in them. Like, I lead by example with my kids, and I say it to my son all the time. Like, no matter what it is, you gotta moving like it's day one, and that's what it is. It's those tangibles, man. That hustle, that hustle. And I don't even know you could teach it. It's just, it's instilled, and this and that and third. But that is one of the things that I always, because that's the one thing that no matter how the game changes, no matter whether it go from cassettes, no matter where it is, that hustle is never not warranted. You know what I mean? And you're always gonna use that. You know what I mean? So that foundation, that's absolutely one of the things that I will always will say, have said, and will continue to say. And one of the things I do tell the artists, put people around you that don't need you. You know what I mean? Because it's build yourself your team, and you have people around you that don't need you. not afraid to tell you what it is, and that, because they don't need you. If, they put so much thought on needing you, you might not get all the information or the proper hearing it the way you need to hear it.
It's very true. Yeah. This has been amazing. I'm thinking of things that have stood out to me, and that's one of the most potent of them. But it sounds like for advice for artists, it's like the J. Cole statement that he knew exactly who he was. And sometimes, and you tell me, an artist at 17 might be struggling with exactly who he is, but that's part of the journey of an artist, right?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
If you're 17 and you don't know exactly who you are, that doesn't mean you're not going to be successful as an artist. That's where the experimentation comes from. Live outside your comfort zone, figure it out, get shows, get in front of live audiences. Because, hey, we know, you said it, if something can go wrong, it's going to go wrong. When you're on stage in front of people and the music goes out behind you or the mic goes out, it's how are you going to handle that situation? And we've seen people fold under that, and we've seen people figure it out. And that's what your past grows you, like you said.
That's so crazy. That was when I knew that Cole had a show. I believe it was Jones Beach. I forgot where it was, and the equipment was like, it was messed up. And he told them, like, just turn the music off, and he started talking. And he started talking to the crowd, and that was the moment that I was like, oh snap, you know what I mean? He turned that mistake into something else. I definitely learned something at that moment, and that's how God works. Because at that moment is when I learned something. And then it happened again, and it was damn near. I wanted that to happen all the time, like, because he just knew, like, he makes the room. He makes the room, like, you could be in a stadium and it feels like a theater. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it is. He's talking to. It could be like, it feels like it's 10 people inside of a stadium, because he's like, the way he connects. And I wouldn't have known that I can't say I wouldn't have known that, but I learned from that moment, from that mistake, and I realized how you're going to deal with that. And that was it's funny you mentioned that, because that was when I truly got Cole, was that moment.
Yeah. It's amazing to see, and that's a gear. Like, look, first off, for an artist, like any artist, if they're not getting out and performing in front of people, when something goes bad, if you don't have the experience in front of 100 people how to handle it, you're not going to handle it well in front of 20,000 or at a festival. So you're much better off getting those lumps and the embarrassing moments under control early on, and understanding how to deal with it, because it's inevitable that a line's going to go out, the drummer is going to be off, you forget lyrics, you're going to freeze up, your voice is going to get a fly is going to fly in your mouth, and you start coughing. It's all how you deal with that stuff. Is from the experience. So
not what happened, it's how you deal with it.
Right, exactly. So this has been incredible. I want to reinforce, Mark, you're on because part of the reason is because you're president of RCA Records, and we're not only proud of you, but it's an amazing accomplishment. But I think the specialness is who you are as a person, and that you really inspire and uplift people. And I know it's just a small part of who you are, but people can follow you at By Storm Pits, I believe is your Instagram.
Yeah.
It's inspirational. And I know you do it to inspire people, but more than anything, I think you speak through your actions. And like I said, I've seen you in those situations, and it's been incredible to be a part of it. And I thank you for doing this. I know that anyone who's watching this is really going to get a lot out of it. So thank you.
No, thank you, brother. Thank you, everyone. One thing I did want to say one thing, right? That is very, very important to me. When I got one of the biggest things, why I do all the workout and all those things, it's very important, because my life changed when I got sick, right? Like in 2007, Bell's palsy, and it was like it might have been one of the best things that ever happened to me, because God has a sense of humor. He knows how to get your attention, and my left side was paralyzed, and it was nuts, but it gave me balance, and it put, it was like I'm in the best shape of my life. All of those things happened after that, right? I needed that. Because you're going, we're going, and it makes you just, we're chasing it so much that we don't focus as much on our health as that we need to. Especially these kids, we hustling, you grinding, this and that, third, and I'm just, it's important to me to show that you can get your hustle on, but also all that money don't mean nothing if you ain't here to spend it, and it is important. So I really want to stand by that. It's very, very important. Like the fact that with all the accolades I've been blessed upon, the most thing that I'm proud of is when I was in men's fitness more than anything. You know what I mean? Like, because that was important to me. That was like, and when I see people and they talk about that more so they talk about even with music, I love that. I love that, because I want to beat the odds. I also want to show, the stigma, what they think about music industry people, what they think about labels, what they think about, there's so many different things that I just try to lead by example, because the fact is, it's to change the narrative as much as I can. And yeah, kids, not taking care of yourself. Like I remember when Big was, it was a car accident him and C's had, and he broke his leg. But going to the hospital to deal with that, he found out that he has bad stuff with his asthma, and he wasn't doing too good. But we didn't know it. We wouldn't have known it if he didn't break his leg. You know what I mean? Like, it's all those things that's going on in the world, and we gotta put that love into ourselves. Like, we have to. That's important.
That's a great point. And look, I hear what I hear you saying. When you got Bell's palsy, you didn't say why me, or you may have at some point, but you're now saying thank you. Like, it was,
absolutely,
you're looking at it that it was a blessing. It was his way of telling you, hey, Mark, you better pay attention to me.
Absolutely.
That's amazing.
That's my world. Like, it was, it was paralyzed. And when I could be dying laughing in a meeting, and I could be, if it's on this side, you would not know I'm even laughing. I used to turn around and be like, yo, that was funny. Like, I always put humor to it at all, but it was one of those things, it changed. It did. That was one of the biggest things that actually took me into another state of mind, and make, that balance. I never used to know how to appreciate an early evening. I always had to be doing something. No, take your ass to sleep, get some rest. It's gonna be here,
Yeah. Well, it's amazing, and I get so much out of seeing what you've done, and this has energized me to just speak to you and to walk through this, and I wish you the best with everything, and
thank you
again.
And I'm proud of you too, Robert, Roberto Stone, over the years. So I appreciate you, man.